Kahamura Saruprupa Kasanatan Kahatasahu Raghunatha Patita Bhavam Kahamura Bhatta Juga Kavira Ekakale Kota Gena Goranatara Ashane Kuchibo Mata Anane Vasibo Goranga Gunerane Dekota Gele Prabhu Se Sabasang Gira Sange Ye Kawilo Pila Se Sangana Paya Kande Narotam Udas Jekonilo Premadano Kona Pracho Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Paravatikacharya also tell us that the Shrimad, His Divine Grace Avaya Chananada Bhaktivedanta Goswami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai ISKCON Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Nantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Vedas Thakur Ki Jai Puren Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Puravanichananda Shidveda Gadadha Shivasati Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Go Bhagavata Sayam Kunda Radhakunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Vrindavanam Ki Jai Machuradam Ki Jai Jagannath Swami Ki Jai Yamunamai Ki Jai Shivati Lasadeva Ki Jai Samveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai Gaur Premananda Hari Hari Go. All glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious the assembled devotees, all glorious the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So we'll read the translation to this poem by Narottama Das Thakur. He who brought the treasure of divine love and was filled with compassion and mercy. Where is such a personality as Srinivasa Acharya God? Where am I, Svarup Damodar and Bkgoswami? Where is Sanatan? Where is Raghunath Das, the savior of the fallen? Where am I, Raghunath Bhatta and Gopal Bhatta? And where is Krishna Das Kaviraj? Where did Lord Gauranga, the great dancer, suddenly go? I will smash my head against the rock and enter into the fire. Where will I find Lord Gauranga, the reservoir of all wonderful qualities? Being unable to obtain the association of Lord Gauranga, accompanied by all of these devotees in whose association he performed his pastimes, Narottama Das simply weeps. So today is the disappearance day of Baladev Vijayabhushana. Is it the disappearance day of Gangamata Goswami? Appearance of Gangamata Goswami. So first we're going to speak about Baladev Vijayabhushana, who's known as the Vedanta Acharya. So to start off the discussion, we'll read a quote from Bhaktivinoda Thakur about Baladev Vijayabhushana. So, Om Gana Timanandasya Gananjana Shlakaya Chakshuram Nitikam Yeda Tasmai Shigraveda Maha. So this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur speaking about Baladev Vijayabhushana and glorifying him. So he says, Vijayabhushana Mahathaya is a special luminous star in the Gaudiya Sampradaya. After the 6 Goswamis, no one has done welfare for the Sampradaya as he has. By this we understand he must be one of the eternal associates of Sriman Mahaprabhu. Srila Baladev Vijayabhushana Prabhu in Jaipur at Gaita Pahad hoisted the victory flag for the Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya, and in doing so he established its eminent position within the Madhva Sampradaya. This service to the Sampradaya proves that he is indeed a Rupanuga Gaudiya Vaishnava. And we're going to explain what Bhaktivinoda Thakur meant by that in a few minutes. So, starting off with his birth, he was born in Orissa, in Baleshwara, which is right near Ramuna. Anyone here been to Ramuna? No, I have. Ramuna was where you have Shirachora Gopinath, the deity who stole the sweet rice. And of course, that's Madhavendra Puri's, one of his main places. The Samadhi of Madhavendra Puri is there, and the Samadhi of Shaimananda is there too. So he studied Vedanta and other literatures, and was even reading the Sarirākya Bhashya. Sarirākya Bhashya is Shankaracharya's commentary, which Vaishnavas are not supposed to read, but he didn't like the Sarirākya Bhashya very much. Finally, he went to Udupi. Udupi, of course, is the seat of the Madhvacharya Sampradaya, where you have the Madhvacharya sannyasis and the different mouths there. And that's where Madhvacharya, he established the deity of Gopal, and also there's the deity there in Udupi of deities of Sita and Ram that were worshipped personally by Hanuman in Udupi. So there he studied all the Vedanta commentaries. And then he went back to Jagannath Puri in the mood of a conqueror. Conqueror means in those days a philosophical conqueror, not someone who conquers with brute strength. There he met Radha Damodar. That is, it was actually a devotee, a man devotee, who was a disciple of Rasikananda. And Rasikananda is a disciple of Shaimananda. So he's coming to that. And he surrendered to him and took initiation. Siksha. Because he's already initiated in the Madhva Sampradaya previously. So he took Siksha. And here in this story we're going to see how Siksha is more important than Diksha in this particular disciplic succession. Then, after that, he went to Vrindavan, being enlivened by Radha Damodar Goswami. He went to Vrindavan and he met Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and he studied with him, and he accepted him as also his Siksha Guru. And there, he studied the 6 Sandarbhas, the Shat Sandarbhas of Srila Jiva Goswami. So Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was a Kshetra sannyasi. That means He wasn't married. Actually, he was married at one point. There's an interesting story in his history. I guess I should tell that. It's a little renunciation story. He was married for a very short period of time. He was asked by his guru one time to go back and see his wife and be with his wife. So he went back to his wife, and he lay down on the bed next to her and chanted the holy names all night long. And then got up the next morning and left. So anyway, very short household life of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Anyway, he was a Kshetra sannyasi, which means someone who takes a vow to remain in a holy place and stay in that holy place, never leaving the holy place, serving the deities or engage in some form of devotional service. So, while Baladev Bkgoswami was studying with Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, while Baladev Bkgoswami was studying with Vishwanath Chakravarti, come on, could we not have talking during class? While Baladev Bkgoswami was studying with Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he received news that in Jaipur, where the deities of Radha Govinda were, that there had been a separation. They had taken Radharani off the altar, and Govinda was there all alone. And this was done not because of the king there, who was a Gaudiya, but because of the group of Ramanandis. And they were, sometimes people say they were part of the Ramanuja Sampradaya. There's different stories. Some say they weren't, some say they were a deviant branch of them, whatever it was. These Ramanandis said that there's no information of Radharani being married to Krishna. You know, we know that they had these interesting relationships in Vrindavan, but there's no marriage relationship. So, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur was thinking, I have to deal with this, but I've taken this vow of Kshetra Sannyasa, and also I'm quite old, and so I can't leave Vrindavan. I just don't, because it's, even in a taxi, it's about 4 or 5 hours away. When I first went to Jaipur, which is what we're talking about now, the roads weren't so good as they were today, and what to speak of how the roads were in those days. And it took like 6 hours bouncing around in a taxi, and it took me 3 days to recover from the taxi ride. Now the roads are quite good. So anyway, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur sent Baladev Bkgoswami, and Baladev Bkgoswami quoted from the Gita Govinda to prove the marriage. The Gita Govinda is the literature by Jayadev Goswami to prove the marriage between Radha and Krishna. And also he quoted from the Brahma Vimohana Leela in the 10th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam. Brahma Vimohana Leela is the Leela in which Lord Brahma gets bewildered and he steals the calves and the cowherd boys. So you may say, how is that related to Radha and Krishna? Well, it's related to Radha and Krishna getting married because when Lord Brahma stole the cowherd boys, somehow this is unequal volume, when Lord Brahma stole the cowherd boys and the calves, Krishna himself expanded as the cowherd boys and the calves. And during that year, there were the marriages between the cowherd boys, not the calves with the gopis, but the cowherd boys with the gopis. And the cowherd boys were very young, 5, 6 years old. You may say, what kind of marriage is this? But that was the standard in those days, that the girls were married very young, and the boys were married very young. And it was, even Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was married, and Srila Prabhupada, of course, too, when their wives were very, very young. And they didn't live together. They would exchange some gifts and things like that, and finally, when they were mature, they would live together. But in this way, the devotees' minds were fixed on one particular husband or one particular wife. It's a good system. Of course, I'm not saying we should utilize that system today. Nowadays, I was just listening to one popular person on the internet last night, and they were talking about if your relationship doesn't work, dump him. Anyway, so during that year, the cowherd boys who were actually Krishna married the gopis. So Krishna was actually married to the gopis. And there's other stories too, like when Krishna stole the gopis' clothes and made the gopis come out in their birthday suits out of the river. And that, in essence, was a marriage too. And there's other stories in Vrindavan where Radha and Krishna had their cloths tied together, and Lord Brahma performed a marriage ceremony. Very interesting stories that are there in Vrindavan. In any case, he proved, Baladev Vijayabhusha proved that Radha and Krishna were married. And then he quoted from this another verse in the 10th canto about Radharani. This is interesting. Anaya radito nunam bhagavan hari ishvara yanno vihoya govinda pritto yam anayad raha. This particular gopi, referring to Radharani, perfectly worshipped the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who was so pleased with her that he abandoned the rest of us and brought her to a secluded place. And there's many more verses he quoted. And he soundly defeated the Ramanandis. But they said to him, but you have no standing, even though you came up with all these interesting arguments, because you are not connected to a sampradaya. He said, I am connected to a sampradaya, because in our sampradaya we have Lord Nityananda, who was initiated by Lakshmi Pati Tirtha. And Madhavendra Puri was a disciple of Lakshmi Pati Tirtha. And Ishwara Puri was a disciple of Madhavendra Puri. And then, of course, then you have Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So they questioned him, just finding fault. They said, hey, then why some people are called Puri and others Tirtha? Just like, looking for little faults. Why some people Puri, other people didn't. He said, this is, the Puri name or the Tirtha name is simply from the sannyas guru. It's not a sampradaya. Just like nowadays, of course, you have all these devotees who recently taken sannyas getting the bhakti names, right? Bhakti Nanda Tirtha, Maharaja, Bhakti this or Bhakti that. Prabhupada actually generally, except in one or two cases like Bhakti Chu Maharaj, when he gave people sannyas, he kept their brahmachari names or household names. And actually, generally, when Prabhupada gave people sannyas, they got the name Goswami if they'd been married before, or Swami if they had not been married before. Generally, there were some exceptions. Like Brahmananda Swami or Gargamuni Swami. And so Goswami, usually like Hridayananda Goswami. So Prabhupada usually did that particular standard. Although in the Gaudiya Math, it's usually, Bhakti. They use a Bhakti name in front of the name. Does everyone understand that? That's why you hear all these Bhakti names. And somehow recently in ISKCON, I would say 90% of the devotees who take sannyas are given a Bhakti name. But it's not that important. It's really not that important, because it's from the sannyas guru. It's not your initiating, ever-loving, eternal spiritual master. So sannyas guru or sannyas is a formality, Prabhupada said. It's not actually an eternal relationship. So, of course, when I took sannyas, I told my sannyas guru, who happened to be Hridayananda Maharaj, I said, you're not changing my name. This is the name given to me by Prabhupada, and whether you like it or not, I'm keeping it. So I kept it. So, anyway, so they complained, and then Baladev Vijayabhusha had an answer. And then they said, well, we can prove you have no sampradaya, because your sampradaya, or your branch of the sampradaya, has no commentary on the Vedanta Sutra. So the Vedanta Sutras are so important because each and every sampradaya has to have a commentary. Like Ramanuja, it's a Shrivasya. So to establish their particular authenticity. So Baladev actually had an argument against that. He said, we have a commentary. It's called the Srimad Bhagavatam. It's written by, of course, Shukadev, not written, of course, Shukadev, Goswami, Vyasadeva, etc., like that. And it's a commentary on the Vedanta, which is true. Because the Vedanta is a commentary on the Upanishads. So you have the progression here. You have the Upanishads, and then you have the Vedanta, which is a commentary on the Upanishads, and then you have the Srimad Bhagavatam, which is a commentary on the Upanishads, on the Vedanta, sorry, on the Vedanta. So, anyway, so they said, no, you need your own commentary. This is a cop-out. And so he was thinking, what am I going to do? And he actually said, yes, we have a commentary, and I'll show it to you in a few days. And so he stuck his neck out, which is part of devotional service, where you stick your neck out, you take a chance, like Prabhupada did coming to the Western world. This is a Vaishnava mood. So he said, we have a commentary. And they said, show it to us. And then he went to Govindaji, the deity, and he prayed. And it's described that Govindaji dictated this commentary on the Vedanta to him. Wow. And it's called the Govinda Bhashya. Means Govinda's commentary. So he read the commentary, and when the pundits heard it, they got, uh-oh. They were so amazed that they actually wanted to be initiated by Baladeva Vijayabhushana. But Baladeva Vijayabhushana, understanding etiquette, which is really important. You know, sometimes you'll find people from other locations, you know, giving reinitiation if the guru is in good standing. And Baladeva said, no, I can't reinitiate you. You're initiated already. But I can give you guidance in devotional service, be your Siksha Guru. And then they brought Radharani, and they had Radharani in a separate place. They brought Radharani back and brought her back to Govinda. Now, one may ask, why did the deities allow this to happen? Because the deity is directly Krishna and Radharani. So nothing happens without their desire. I mean, I remember one time, I believe it was in San Diego, devotees woke up one morning and found Subhadra gone. And there was just a pile of ashes where Subhadra was. And Prabhupada said that's because there were offenses going on in the temple. So, I mean, Krishna's there and he can leave. Another time, well, this is when I was with Prabhupada, devotees went to a temple and they weren't received so nicely in the temple, and they were describing to Prabhupada, I was in Prabhupada's room at this time, they were describing to Prabhupada about how they were not received nicely in the temple, and they said to Prabhupada, but we went to see the deity, and Prabhupada said, there's no deity there. And they said to Prabhupada, but we saw the deity. And Prabhupada said, you heard what I said. There's no deity there. And then Prabhupada gave that famous quote, they're using Shaligram Shila to crack nuts with. I mean, I was with Prabhupada directly, I heard it, so it's not just a Prabhupada said story for me, because maybe for you it's a Prabhupada said story, but for me, I was there. So this is in Mayapur in Prabhupada's room on the second floor of the Lotus building, when Prabhupada said that. Every night we would meet with Prabhupada for a darshan from about 5 o'clock to 7 every evening. 2-hour darshan with Prabhupada. And then at 7, Prabhupada sent everyone down for Sundar Arti. Prabhupada said, you know, everybody go to the Arti. So there's special memories for me in that room, you know, Prabhupada's room on the second floor of the Mayapur temple. So anyway, so the point is, Radha Govinda, they were separated because they had an argument. So even Krishna and Radharani, they have arguments sometimes. That's not a cause to break up a relationship just because you argue with someone. So anyway, so they had an argument, and Krishna likes arguments. He enjoys, even in Dwarka, he tried to make Rukmini argue with him. Imagine, he said to Rukmini, his wife, lawfully wedded wife, that you married the wrong person, you should get a divorce, basically. You could have married that nice Shishupal. And she, instead of arguing with him, she fainted, because she didn't have the mood to argue. But Radharani and Satyabhama, they have that mood to argue. And Krishna enjoys that more, where there's arguments. So, anyway, so there was a lover's quarrel, so to speak, and Radharani left. It's called a spat, lover's spat. Anyway, it's interesting. And so then that's the whole internal reason why this happened. So, Baladeva Vijayabhushana established the tattvas, the five. And we're not talking about, it's actually called the Pancha-tattvas, but not the Pancha-tattva in terms of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, etc. But the five tattvas that are mentioned in the Bhagavad Gita, that's why Prabhupada talks about it. There's Ishvara, the Supreme Lord, the Jiva soul, which is us, the Prakriti, which is this, the Kala, the time, and finally Karma. Those are the five topics which Prabhupada, the reason Prabhupada mentions that as the five topics of the Gita is because that's from Baladev's commentary on the Bhagavad Gita. And Baladeva Vijayabhushana's Samadhi is behind the Radha Shyama Sundara temple in Vrindavan. And so as far as his books, very, very elaborate description of his books here. Actually, one book that's interesting is the Pranamaya Ratnavali, which establishes our disciplic succession, which Prabhupada quotes from partially in the beginning of the Bhagavad Gita, and of course then he completes it with the ones that came after Baladeva Vijayabhushana. So here's the literatures he compiled. Another point I wanted to mention is the reason he was chosen to write this commentary on the Vedanta Sutras is that he had previously heard this commentary in his past life. From Lord Chaitanya. He was Gopinath, the brother-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. Remember the story of the Chaitanya Charitamrita that Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya wanted to teach Lord Chaitanya Vedanta. So for 7 days, Lord Chaitanya sat there and listened, and he didn't say anything. And Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya said, "You've been sitting for 7 days. You have no questions? Do you understand?" And he said, "I don't understand anything of your commentary. But I know the commentary or the purpose and the meaning of the Vedanta Sutras if you'd like to hear." So he proceeded to give his own commentary, Lord Chaitanya's commentary in the Vedanta Sutras. And while he gave that commentary, it's described that Gopinath, the brother-in-law of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, was present and he heard this commentary. And so that's another reason why he was chosen to write the Govinda Bhash, the commentary of the Vedanta Sutras. So it's very much in line of the commentary with the commentary that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu gave Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya. So anyway, I forgot to mention that. So here's some of his works. We mentioned the Govinda Bhasha. Then there's the Siddhanta Ratna, the jewel of conclusions. Sahitya Kaumudi, a summary of the Vedanta philosophy known as the Vedanta Asyamantaka, the jewel of factual principles. That outlines the 9 principles held in common by our Sampradaya and the Madhvas. And then there's Pranaya Ratnavali, a summary of Gaudiya Vaishnava principles, called Siddhanta Darpana, the Kavya Koshtaba, a book of selected Sanskrit verses for Vaishnavas, the Aishvarya Kadambani, Vyakarana Kaumudi, a book on grammar, Pada prayers, commentaries on important Upanishads, beginning with the Ishopanishad, which Prabhupada gave us. We had that Ishopanishad basically almost before we had all the other books, except for the Bhagavad Gita. Actually, I remember when I joined the movement, we used to recite the Ishopanishad for Mangalarti. We didn't used to do the Gurvashtaka prayers. It was Ishopanishad. I remember with the drum. Ishavashamidam sarvam yakincha jagajam jagat. Right? Jena diktena dhamagridha kashasidanam om purnam madat. You know, dancing to the Ishopanishad. Which is, anyway, was interesting. Because this Gurvashtaka was introduced later on by Srila Prabhupada. In the beginning, people didn't wake up for Mangalarti. And then when we started to wake up, then we woke up to chant the Ishopanishad. And then later on, Gurvashtaka. And then, so the commentary in the Gopal Tapani Upanishad, a commentary in the Bhagavad Gita, known as the Gita Bhushana Bhashya, which Prabhupada followed, as well as commentaries in the Vishnu Sahasranam, Srimad Bhagavatam, which Prabhupada consulted, the Vaishnava Nandini Tika, commentary on the Tattva Sandarbha, commentary on Bkgoswami's Stavamala, the Nata Chandrika, that's also by Bkgoswami, dance, Jayadeva Goswami's Chandraloka, and Baladeva Vibhushan's original works, the Hitchik Komudi, Lagu Bhagavatamrita, Nataka Chandrika, and Shaimananda Shataka. And he disappeared in the Christian year 1768. That's Baladeva Vibhushan. Very wonderful personality. So, now we'll speak a little bit about Gangamata Goswamini. And let's see. So this is in Bengal. There was a king who had a daughter named Sachi. And she was very attached to Krishna consciousness, even from a very young age. She had no attraction for young men at all, no matter how handsome or rich they were. So he tried to arrange, the king tried to arrange his daughter's marriage. And his daughter said, I'm not going to marry a mortal man, born of this world of death. But they kept pressuring and pressuring and pressuring. Indian parents do that, isn't it? So they were unsuccessful, and eventually they passed away, I guess out of disappointment. And then Sachi became the queen. And she accepted all the responsibilities of governing the kingdom. And she thought, I got to get out of here. So she told them, I want to see more of the kingdom, travel around the kingdom. But she used that as an excuse to visit the holy places of pilgrimage after appointing some relatives to govern her place. And she traveled a lot, and eventually she thought, let me find a spiritual master. After much travel, she arrived in Jagannath Puri, and she received a message, an inner message from her heart, that she should go to Vrindavan. And then she went to Vrindavan. In Vrindavan, she met Haridas Pandit, who was completely devoted to Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, and she was given shelter and initiation by Haridas Pandit. And here's the history of Haridas Pandit. Anantacharya was a disciple of Gadadhar Pandit, and Haridas Pandit was his disciple. In other words, Haridas Pandit was a disciple of Anantacharya, was a disciple of Gadadhar Pandit Goswami, so that she's in our disciplic succession. So Haridas Pandit wanted to examine his disciple. This is the Guru's prerogative. And he said, it's better for you to stay at home and worship it than to stay in Vrindavan. But this was a test. Sometimes the guru will give the disciple a test and say, oh, do this, do that. And they'll say, no, I can't do that. I want to be devoted. Just go back home. No. So with fierce determination, renunciation, austerity, she went on with her bhajan in Vrindavan and absorbed herself in austere service. And she was given permission by her guru eventually to wander around Vrindavan in rags, even though she was a queen. She became very, very thin, saw all the holy places. Haridas Pandit said to her, well, actually, he didn't give her initiation. He just gave her shelter before it. Then he gave her initiation after seeing. That was an initiation test in the old days. So Haridas Pandit told her to go to Jagannath Puri eventually to preach about Lord Chaitanya's pastimes. So she returned to Jagannath Puri, and she began to worship the Damodar Shalagram that had been worshipped by Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya himself. So one day the king came to hear the Bhagavatam from her, and he thought that he would like to make a nice offering, and he offered her a place on the banks of the Shveta Ganga to live. But she didn't want to accept such such an opulent facility. But still, she lived on the banks of what's called the White Ganges, the Shveta Ganga. One day, it came time for the Mahavaruni Snan, and Sachi Devi wanted to go to the Ganges to bathe, but she had been forbidden ever to leave Jagannath Puri. That's like Kshetra Sannyas again, which we mentioned about Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So that night, Lord Jagannath came to her in a dream and said, don't think like that. The day when it comes for that particular snan or bath, that day you must go and bathe in the White Ganges. So you must go to the White Ganges, which is, I guess, a different river that's there in Jagannath Puri. So she was very joyful. In the middle of the night, she went to the White Ganges to bathe. As she bathed in the White Ganges, the current of Ganga Devi picked her up and began moving her along, which is like a big flood. And it overflooded the pond, the current ran before the flood, and she arrived in the middle of the Jagannath Mandir. And then, of course, in the middle of all this commotion, the guards at the gate of the Jagannath temple awoke. And they saw all these things going on. Hearing a great noise, they went inside the temple, and the king was woken up. And then they found Sachi Devi standing alone inside the temple of Lord Jagannath. They concluded that she must be a thief, and many people said, no, she's not a thief. But still, she was imprisoned in a dungeon to stand trial for theft. She absorbed herself in constantly chanting the holy name of Krishna. That night, the king saw Lord Jagannath in a dream. Jagannath told him, immediately, Jagannath was angry. He told him, immediately release Sachi Devi from your dungeons. It was because I wanted to personally arrange for washing her holy feet that I had the Ganges bring her to my temple. If you want your life to be auspicious, then you had better make the Pandits and Pujaris bow at her feet and pray for forgiveness. You yourself must take initiation from her. So the king was repentant. He went and released Sachi Devi, fell down and had everyone fall down before Sachi Devi like rods. And then he took initiation from her in the 18-syllable Radha Krishna mantra. And all the pujaris took initiation from her. And that day forward, Sachi Devi became known as Gangamata Goswamini. And let's see. Oh, the one day, this is the final story. A Smarta Brahmin named Mahidara Sharma came to the banks of the Shveta Ganga to worship his ancestors. Having heard about her, he wanted to take darshan of her lotus feet. So Gangamata Goswami offered him a place to sit. She asked him what his purpose was his coming. The Brahmin Pandit explained the reason for his coming. And then Gangamata Goswami explained the Siddhanta of Srimad Bhagavatam to the Brahmana. The Brahmana was astonished by her explanations and dived and surfaced in the nectar of her ambrosial words. After this, the Pandit Brahmin asked to take shelter at the lotus feet of Gangamata Goswamini. On an auspicious day, she initiated him into the Radha Krishna mantra of 10 syllables. So you have different types of Radha Krishna mantras. So this particular Brahmana's birthplace is in Dhananjayapura. On the order of Gangamata Goswamini, he preached the message of Nama Prema, the teachings of Gaura Nityananda throughout Bengal. So here we have a lady who is a guru. Interesting, initiating guru, Janavamata. And that, sometimes the argument in this kind is that, well, these are special personalities. Well, actually, I can tell you also in our disciplic succession, there's many female gurus, and that are not like considered on the same level as Gangamata Goswamini. And secondly, most of the male gurus in our previous gurus in our disciplic succession are extremely elevated too. So if you can have Western people acting as gurus, or Indian people who come from like less than desirable backgrounds acting as gurus, why not? Krishna says in the Gita, anyone who approaches me can be they of any type of birth. Of course, he mentions women there, but he also mentions, kings or friends of the brahmanas. So we're even most of us are even less than that. I'm not even in that list. At least women are in that list, isn't it? According to my birth, I'm not in that list. I'm just like outside. And somehow or other I'm functioning under Prabhupada's direction in a particular capacity. So anyway, so Krishna consciousness is not on the bodily platform. It has nothing to do with the body. I mean, obviously we use the body, but it has nothing to do with the body. I mean, whether you arrive at a preaching program in a Mercedes, a Tesla, a Volkswagen, or a Yugo, it doesn't matter. Right? You say, I'm not going to hear from you. You came in a you know what a Yugo is? Yugo is like the Flintstones car. Anyone seen the Flintstones?
That's a big offense.
It is a big offense. It's not an offense. It's a practical observation, and he knows it.
That was a great car.
Yeah, if you like driving around with a tin can with wheels on it.